Greetings and welcome, everyone. This is the second session of our 5e D&D Eberron game. This arc, tentatively titled It Belongs in a Museum. I am the dungeon master of this game. My name is Ralph. I am online at Cthulhu. That's Crittthulhu. It's like Cthulhu, but with crit in the beginning. I'm on Twitter at that handle, and I have thoughts about games. You can find me there. Alan, you want to introduce yourself and your character?
Yes, I am Alan Nicholas. I'm on Twitter at Big Al the Lawyer. I'm an attorney over in Texas, and I love to game a little bit. And I am playing Talion, who is awesome.
Agreed.
Or at least thinks he is. I'm Andy. I'm at Blackfall Press on Twitter. By day, humble arms dealer to the Republic of Korea. By night, freelance writer, editor, game designer, etc. As Blackfall Press. You can find me on Facebook there as well. And we're obviously down a player this time, so I brought one.
Hi.
My wife.
It seems that you're like one step closer to Tony Stark.
What?
You're an arms dealer to Korea.
Oh, well,
And you brought your wife into the business.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, I'm Julia. Great guy. I am by day, which I think is hilarious that this title here belongs to a museum. I actually work for a museum educator. So I joke that my job is to be Bill Nye and get paid for it. It's kind of fun. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm playing Gideon Blacklake, a human fighter.
I am playing Azure, a Dragonborn Storm Sorcerer.
Perfect, yeah. And as Andy, aka Gideon, just referred to, we are missing Michael at the RPG Academy. So the character of a ghost will be less involved this session. I believe he is joining us for the next session, so no worries there. But yeah, so last we saw our heroes, the party was hired as night watchmen for a small boutique museum called Bezelwick's Gallery of Curiosities and History, I believe is the title. History and Curiosities, I should say. They did this largely at the request of Talion, who had received the as a gnome of standing in the city of Kornberg. He was asked to lend some aid in this endeavor. So at Talion's request, Gideon and a ghost were assisting him in the Night Watchman business. They encountered a couple of hobgoblins, a couple of them fairly standard fare, the third one some sort of ninja spellcaster that seemed intent on stealing one of the items that would be on an upcoming display as part of an exhibition. A little bit of intrigue surrounding that, and the party was tapped by an agent, Cornel Audreton, aka Codger, of the Trust. He's one of the openly acting members of the Trust, known as a face. Who just deals with things outright and doesn't really tend towards the clandestine. He brought the group into what unfolded to be a mystery. The private donor who had furnished the items for the exhibit was found petrified in a sealed study chamber in the depths of the Korenberg Library. And a ghost uncovered the remnants of what looked like some sort of sigil that had been on a book that Verdun Top, this Aurum member private donor, was perhaps reading at the time that he was petrified. We're picking up right about there. You guys were exiting the study chamber. Codger had asked Talion's brother Tander to pull the records. showing who had access to the study chamber, recent individuals who had paid the study fee, or scholars that would have access to these books, so that they could determine if who or what placed the sigil in that book. And I think Gideon pointed out the unlikely coincidence that this book would have been in Verdon's path to begin with. I would say, like, you're as a soldier, during the last war, Kenneth manufacturers developed a thing called a landmine, and and so you would say that, you know, somebody placed this where he was going. So that seems quite circumstantial, or what have you. But yeah, you guys were in the process of exiting out of the Korenberg Library, still in Codger's company for the moment. But he escorts you across the bridge, kind of leading from where the library is, like, secluded in the middle of the river in the midst of Korenberg. And he trusts that you all will be at the exhibit this evening to secure what's left of the Treasures of the Seawall exhibition, and that he believes that he's going to cut through the red tape so that the trust will take ownership of this in Verdon's absence, since he's incapacitated. So you guys have a few hours, actually, before evening. Is there anything that you wanted to accomplish? I guess specifically Talion or Gideon?
Nothing particularly offhand. I know the other group of watchmen are kind of taking up the post, so I recall having made some arrangements for them to have some coffee and, pastries sent to them previously, but I'm just going to take some downtime and make sure I'm rested up for the big show.
Perfect.
Italian's going to do the same thing. I'm not really interested in running around. Kind of concerned about what the night may hold, and really hoping that my little feeder story to what is her name now?
Tarina.
Tarina, yes. Really hoping that my little feeder story to Tarina does what I want it to do, which is make it less exciting. But I'm afraid that it's going to make it more exciting.
Yeah. And what Talion is referring to, of course, is that he fed a rumor to a reporter for the Korenberg Chronicle by the name of Tarina Talltail. Talltail is not her actual surname. It seems to be a pen name. But yeah, he fed her a line that there would be more security, and that I believe there was implications of top men being involved, top persons being involved. Okay, well, all of that being said, we can fast track a little bit to the evening time then. For those of you keeping track, it is Nim the 3rd, which is roughly equivalent to, like, our June. It's the 6th month of the calendar, so it's similar to what we're experiencing in real life at this moment. So the exhibit starts around like 6 or 7. I don't think, like, in a city like Korenberg, there's probably enough clocks and things like that let's just say it starts at 7 and it runs to about 10 o'clock or so. So by the time you guys have finished your dinner and you've had your downtime to prep and shore up for the evening, you are about to set off for the exhibit, the museum, the gallery. And an individual by the name of Gideon, you would know him as... you spent the most time with a ghost, and the pair of you have passed through Zilargo maybe a couple of times at this point. This is a Brellish man by the names of Orson Macker. And he was a Magerite during the last war. He's effectively retired now, but he's always taken an interest in a ghost for his unique construction. It took some convincing to for Orson to believe that the ghost was even a warforged because of his strange design. But Orson actually had heard tales of a strange-looking warforged stalking around the eastern neighborhood here of the river, and he has tracked down a ghost, and he wants to have dinner with a ghost, and he says that he has a friend in town of the Cannith persuasion who is very keen on meeting a ghost. I would say in your past dealings with Orson, you found him to be like a very trustworthy individual. So I don't think it would strike you as dangerous or anything like that if he misses out. And a ghost is excited to see another one of his friends. So I think a ghost is eager to agree.
He does know a ghost doesn't eat.
Yeah, it's more so that he and the Cannith heir will be will be having dinner and a show. So unless anybody has strenuous objections, a ghost who isn't too much of a help in combat necessarily is going to sit out the guard duty. He's more curious than intimidating, perhaps. So that being said, Azure, this is where you come into the story. Yeah, so you have been approached by, for whatever reason that you might deem, you are currently in Corenburg, which is a city in the gnomish nation of Zilargo, of course. You've been approached by Codger to act as an additional security force for this evening. Perhaps you've done some mercenary work for the Trust before. Perhaps your reputation just precedes you. Perhaps you're just cheaper than the House Deneath mercenaries.
That's
but Codger approaches you and puts a few coins in your palm and just tells you that there is a gallery. You can attend the gallery. He's given you enough to make a donation for entrance. And he wants you to just keep an eye on things, and if anything should go awry, he believes that someone of your stature knows how to handle that.
Okay. I readily accept the coins, and I get a couple more details, location, all that jazz from him, and then...
Yeah, he tells you that he gives you, let's say, 15 gold. And he says they've come across a few goblinoid bands in town. 3, maybe 4, if you count an unfortunate entanglement with some House Deneath mercenaries on furlough. But the last night, one of them, hobgoblin types, tried to break into this museum. And, if they're interested in it, we haven't quite sussed out why. Working on that now, but I just don't want them to make a move while it's still ongoing, and my superiors don't want to put the kibosh on an event on just a hunch that it'll happen again.
I'll keep my eyes peeled.
Very good. That's what I'm paying you for. All right. So we'll pick up then that evening. Like I said, it's about 7 o'clock. You can hear maybe the distant bells of one of the many towers that kind of dots the city skyline. So it's still light out, but the light is fading a bit. It'll be sundown here shortly. Talion and Gideon arrive, and you see that the museum, as much as it was the previous night, although, let's see here. Hold on one second. The gallery is much the same as it was the night prior, with the additions of a pair of gnomish docents greeting at the door and encouraging donations. A group of middle-class tradesfolk and scholars have filled in the upper left and right galleries, milling about and chatting. And I'll drop a link right now to the map, just so we can get a sense of the place. Let's see.
Get a sense of how much people are making for these suggested donations?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So, you don't see, you see a handful of silver, maybe as much as like 5 to 8 silver. You see some of the more well-to-do people are up to a coin or two, perhaps. A gold coin or two, I should say. Yeah, and you can see there are some other individuals in the line too doing what you're doing. They're kind of like looking to see like what's going on. There are
that 15 I can keep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can see that the docents are there, and they seem very proper, and they are, they are encouraging donations. They kind of are like they standing around a couple of like stone boxes and things with coin slots. But yeah, you could definitely breeze by. It looks like a few individuals are doing that. That being said, and so when you enter in, there's the upper left and right galleys. That's where most of the crowd is, of like the middle class. You could see that down in the lower gallery. Many of the exhibits, like the display cases that you guys had seen covered before, are uncovered. And you could see like glimmering gems and semi-precious stones of many varieties. There is a faint red glow coming from the exhibit case in the center, and that is still covered. And Bezelwick is kind of standing there, in conversation with guests. He's standing on like a stool to be more at the height of some of the medium-sized individuals who are in here. Let's see here. Yeah, that's basically as much as you see. So if we take a look at the map, you guys can give me a sense of your general location. I think you should be able to move those tokens. And I can switch the titles on that. Azure, do you want to be the blue token? Would that make more sense? Here, let's see here. Let me remember how to token rules. So we'll make Azure the blue token, and we'll move Gideon to the purple token. So not depicted here necessarily is kind of the crowd. This is more of a boutique gallery than a proper museum. And Azure, you would know that there are multiple small museums like this kind of competing all across Korenberg. So this is definitely more of like a small art gallery than like a lavish museum. But they are all in competition to kind of get money for their proprietors, and this is maybe not the most prestigious event in town this evening, but it's been heavily advertised. You've seen handbills kind of handed out near the library regarding it. Talion, you would actually in that gallery where you are now on the left-hand side as you entered, and maybe this is why you tended towards that side, you would see that Tander is here with a couple of other individuals kind of wearing the robes of the library.
I kind of give him a wink and a nod, but I'm not going to embarrass him by talking to him.
Sure. Perfect then. And there are more so catering to the lower levels, where the individuals are kind of more finely dressed and like, this season's Klebdetchers and like a few glamour weave outfits. One woman looks like she has like a faintly illusory swarm of like butterflies flitting about her. There are some like waiters moving around, going to the lower level with full trays of some sort of wine, perhaps, and little finger foods and things like that. But they move so briskly that the people in the upper galleries don't get a chance to pick at them. And Azure, since this is your first time maybe seeing this, the left-hand gallery is more of the history of Zilargo specifically. There are some like diplomatic artifacts and things like that. And then there's some general Corvarian history. And then on the right-hand side, there's like a magical beasts section. There's like a stuffed displacer beast and owl bear egg fragments and fire beetle carapace and things like that. All right, perfect. Which way are you like, I'll just move you guys into the museum here for starters. Gideon, I think you would tend towards the lower level. You seem like an obvious heavy and like a stern presence here. Dalian, you might even just kind of blend in with the crowd. Particularly, there's a lot of individuals of your height in the room, I would say. And
that's definitely what Talian's trying to do. I've positioned myself in such a way that I'm trying to see both into the lower, but also keep an eye out on this entryway to the basement, because there seemed to be some concern about that from the other night.
Yeah, you haven't been to the archives, but you imagine that the things that aren't on display, whatever they are probably kept down there. It seems certainly where most of these gems were stored the night previous. But all of that being said, let's see here. Shortly after you guys have kind of moved in, Azure, perhaps you're looking over the exhibits. These guys have probably gotten bored of them from a couple of nights of seeing them. Bezelwick, the proprietor of the museum, Azure, you probably intuit that. Talion and Gideon, you've met him. He's been somewhat begrudging about it. He dings on a glass to kind of call attention to himself. And he is standing here near this display case. He calls the attention of the room to him, and the general kind of chatter dies down. The ever bright lanterns in this room are fully lit, and you have like the fading sun kind of coming in through the dome window above your heads. He calls to attention and begins to address the crowd, saying that Zilargo is truly a nation of great wealth. Our immaterial wealth, our wealth of knowledge, is of course well documented, but we have such material wealth as well. With that, he, like, as if he's practiced this in the mirror, perhaps, he grabs the cloth over the display case in the center and just pulls it away, revealing there are a number of slightly more impressive looking gems kind of arrayed to either side of this, but located centrally is a ruby the size of a fist. And it seems to have been the lightly glowing point of light that you had seen through the cover. Gideon and Talion, you would note that what was under this cloth before was just like an ever bright lantern orb. This is like the real deal. So you had intuited that he was leaving like a red glowing something under the covers to kind of generate buzz, but this is what the buzz was for, perhaps. And the room in general just kind of gasps, and some of them kind of begin whispering to each other, having not seen a gem of that size. Or, yeah, maybe not recently for some of the richer individuals. He goes on to say, "Behold a gem, dubbed the Heart of the Seawall, by the anonymous party that has shared it with us tonight. A ruby plucked from the depths north of the deep-cut mine." Gideon, what's your passive perception?
I'm sitting at a 14.
Talion and Azure, you're both actually also looking in this direction. What's your guys' passive perception?
9.
Okay.
13.
So maybe your attention starts to wander, Azure. He's prattling on about the majesty of the Seawall Mountains, which are just to the east of the city, the northeast, and the great wealth that is concealed within and that is extracted by the gnomes. But Gideon and Talion, you note that the gem, the so-called heart of the seawall, as Bezelwick kind of continues to prattle on, the faint light from it just pulses, throbbing, still kind of the same intensity, just gently throbbing like maybe like a heartbeat. As you guys are observing that, coalescing out of seemingly nothing, a mist rapidly forms on the ground. Actually, Gideon, pretty much directly in front of you, which startles you perhaps a little bit. But it rapidly coalesces into the form of a greenish-hued, but translucent hobgoblin form.
Okay.
And
seeing this, I'm gonna do my best to, immediately, shield is probably already out, but draw hammer and interpose myself as best I can between it and Bezelwick.
Sure. That sounds like a logical thing to do. Let me zoom in on the map here. But let's go ahead and let's roll for initiative, everyone.
Oh.
And then I'll ask everybody for what they're doing here in a second. Oh no, I've cloned it. It is just the one. And this is your man, Bezelwick. All right, Gideon, what is your initiative?
2.
Oof. You are acting as you've described, since you're not surprised by these events.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe just a little slower acting than you anticipated.
Yep.
Talion?
I'm still in shock that I heard 2. 21.
Oof.
Only.
And Azure?
9. It's my favorite number tonight, apparently.
All right. Let me roll. So what this creature looks like is nothing less than like a ghostly form of a hobgoblin warrior, wearing breastplate, sword being drawn from its scabbard at this moment, snarling silently, maybe like the faintest hiss from where you guys are. Gideon, it's probably a little bit more pronounced to you, but very much like, think Return of the King. No, wait. Yes. Return of the King? Yeah, those guys. Green, ghastly warrior.
Yeah.
That being said, the crowd also takes note of this, obviously, and they begin to panic a bit. So Talion and Azure, where you guys are, not depicted here, is a bit of a crowd, and they're going to begin shifting. So you're going to kind of have to have some difficult terrain and maybe not a clear line of sight at the moment as things kind of kick off here. Talion, it is actually your go.
That's fantastic. Let me get a second. Okay. So I don't really know exactly what's going on, but obviously I'm pretty concerned. And because this being is still translucent, or has it solidified?
It looks like it's solidified perhaps as much as it's going to. Like its shade has darkened a little bit, but it does still seem vaguely immaterial. You're not 100% sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and distract it. I'm going to cast a minor illusion. And I'm going to cast, what's going to happen is there's going to be a high-pitched scream that's going to seem to emanate from the ruby, as though it's screaming at the presence of this thing.
Interesting. Okay. Did you want to move to kind of push your way towards the railing a bit? Because you have the high ground at the moment, but
Yes, I'm going to move a little bit. I'm going to try and get a better angle. Hold on, let me look and see where I'm at again. Yeah, I'm not going to move too far because I want to maintain my my height advantage to the degree that I may have one. But I am going to try and get a better line of sight.
okay, sure. What's your spell save DC?
It is. Where is it?
It's probably like 14, 13?
Oh, it's a 12. There it is.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you can see that it turns over its shoulder, and immediately its sword kind of like flies to its hand. You can see that it has like a warrior's reflexes, but it just kind of surveys the area behind it, seemingly startled by a loud noise, but it doesn't look overly concerned. Like it looks down at the ruby, it looks around in an arc, just kind of seeing what had kind of snuck up on it, and then it perceives like no real threat in that direction. So it does seem like it was momentarily distracted by that. The crowd, as if echoing your shriek, you can hear a gnomish woman, perhaps a shrill screech, and the crowd is even more panicked than it was a second ago. But the majority of them are kind of moving out of your guys' squares, so this might work to your advantage anyway. What if I do this? So the majority of the crowd is here. They all just kind of bolt towards the exit. Maybe maybe you see the museum employees kind of filing this way. And Azure, the rest of them, the crowd on your side of the gallery is also bolting in this direction. And some of the richer individuals who run up from the lower gallery, one of them knocks down like a gnome waiter. But you can see that they're spilling out of the building in this fashion as well. So Talion, that was your move and your action. Did you want to do anything else? Or
That's it for now. I just kind of want to see what happens next.
Sure. Azure, you are acting now. This seems to be the trouble that Codger implied might follow.
Gotcha. Sorry, just reading through some of my spells here. I've not had too much of a chance to get up to date on it. What is the Hobgoblin warrior doing at this moment? Is it threatening? Is it just kind of standing there?
It has its sword in its hand. It surveyed the area immediately behind it because of the scream that it just heard. But it does seem to kind of turn its attention towards Bezelwick. And it seems menacing.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I'm going to be using my tempestuous magic so I can be able to fly out of the way here if I need to. No. I think I want to kind of throw the first shot at it and see what it can or cannot do. It's within kind of close range here, I guess. How far away am I approximately? Is that like?
You are only about 30 feet away at the moment. And you do have the high ground. These two galleries are on either side of like a sunken section.
Gotcha.
And the stairs are at the north and south of that.
Okay. I'm I'm gonna quickly throw out Firebolt and see if I can kind of at least garner its attention away from Bezalik.
Go for it. Give me an attack roll.
That is a 19.
Oh, that is a hit.
Okay. It's like 3 damage, but notice.
Yeah, it takes notice, and you see it. You see, perhaps. Hold on, just a second for me. You seem that it seems as damaged by the fire as you anticipated. You did how much damage?
Just 3.
Okay. So you hit it maybe just in the shoulder, let's say, and the fire seems to interact with whatever material that it's made out of in a fashion similar to flesh. Well, so it takes 3 points of damage. All right, I'll make a note of that here.
Okay, and I'm gonna use my bonus action to be able to kind of move about a 10-foot way. I'm thinking maybe I'll kind of move kind of directly.
Hang on.
Okay.
Like there?
I don't want to be that close. I want
Here?
range. Down the hallway. Up here.
Oh, like here?
Yeah. Within 10 feet.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Fine.
Yeah, and you still have the high ground from that point. That display case is that's a display case and not a column or anything in front of you, so
Yeah.
you can still fire over that pit.
No, you
Oh,
want to
that's
actually
true.
move. Because that's a bonus action to
Oh, that's
use
true.
tempestuous magic.
I think I just kind of want to hang tight and see what it does.
Yeah, there's a little bit of this. Let's say this is one of the employees running up the stairs at the moment. And Gideon, you just lost out to the warrior, unfortunately. He has a 4. And you have a 2. So let's take a look here. He looks to Bezelwick, and he hisses out something that... Talion, you can't hear it over the crowd, and you're the only person that would probably be able to make it out. Gideon, this sounds like a swear that you heard the hobgoblin the night previously use, but it's not a swear that you're familiar with in the goblin tongue. But you can see that he looks towards Bezelwick and then looks towards you, and since he sees you as a threat more so than the gnome scampering away from him, he's going to take a swing at you. So let's take a quick look here. He has a long sword that he's wielding in 2 hands, so does a 14 hit.
No.
Okay, as a bonus action. So basically, you can see that he misses. He swings that first swing at you, and you have brought your shield to bear, so you're able to turn it aside.
Oh, hold up right there.
Oh, no.
Reaction.
Reaction.
We're going to use the reaction to
Sure.
riposte.
Go for it.
So I burn one of my superiority dice, and let's give him a face full of Warhammer. Natural 1.
Oh. Okay, so as I was saying,
Carry
yeah,
on.
yeah. Maybe the sword blow, like you brace your shield, but it's a little bit more powerful than maybe you anticipate. So it just throws you off a little bit. And he takes that moment. You can see that he overextends himself. Like he lunges forward with his sword the second time, and does an AC 20 hit you?
Yes.
All right. Takes 7 points of slashing damage.
That'll hurt.
But you can see that in order to get that second attack on you, he did overextend himself. So, yeah, it looks like you're in an advantageous position, should we say?
Good. That is a plus. Let's go ahead with that. I'm assuming my turn.
Yep, you are
Okay.
the bottom of the order.
Cool. I will move over just to cover Bezelwick. Just try to, ensure that the boss man is going to be defended. Since we are at advantage on this, let's go ahead. Let's smoke another die here for a menacing attack. And first, all right. First, that's only an 11 to hit, even with advantage.
It looks like his spectral breastplate still has enough like physicality to kind of to catch that.
Okay. Let's smoke the action surge too. Come on, just hit once. Come on. 12. Okay, so a total of 17.
Oh yeah, that's a hit.
All right.
Solidly.
For a mighty 5 damage.
Not as much damage as you might hope. So this time you double back and with your hammer choke up on it a little and take another swing, and you could feel resistance as your weapon drags through him, and he seems like perturbed by that, but not as wounded as you might hope.
Okay. Does it by chance look like it's showing resistance to this?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Given that, I'm gonna use the rest of my move to swap to my javelin.
Sure, yeah. All right. So you can see the crowd is running about here like mad. Most of them have kind of filtered out. Bezelwick, acting last, is going to go ahead and super run away. He's going to scamper.
Super run away.
Yeah. Are you a Venture Brothers fan?
Very much so.
Oh, now we've got something to talk about. All right, we'll get to that later. He's gonna double move, and you can see the hobgoblin like looks in his direction as he panics and flees, but he doesn't even take his attack. He just like lets the rat just scurry away, basically. Like he's
okay.
Where's the move? Bezelwick, get over here. Bezelwick runs and kind of grasps onto his employee over here in a little bit of a state of shock. Let's say. All right, and that brings us back to the top of the order. The din of the crowd, at least from your guys' vantage point, is lessening a bit as everybody's kind of storming into the streets. It looks like it's just orderly enough that like nobody's getting trampled, fortunately, at the door or anything like that. But yeah, the place is clearing out except for you all. The hobgoblin looks around, seeing the people who have kind of remained behind. So at this point, he clocks you, Talion, and he looks back at you, Azure, as the spellcaster, but then he just turns and glares at Gideon in front of him. And that brings us back to the top of the order. Talion.
Okay. Couple of questions.
Sure.
One, does the Hobgoblin Warrior, does it appear to be interested in anything other than fighting at this point?
As far as you have intuited, it does not appear to be interested in anything other than combat. It looked like he sized up the most adequate martial individual in the room and started swinging.
Okay. Second set of questions. The heart of the seawall, is it, in terms of being displayed, is it displayed in such a way that it's encased? Is it open to the public? How is it displayed? It's
under glass. You would know from a ghost tampering with it that the glass isn't hard to open. But as far as, it is a glass display case.
Okay. And
he did pick the lock on it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he did. Is it, and how much does it weigh?
I mean, it's a fist-sized ruby. I would say I couldn't say that it weighs more than 5 pounds if you're asking for mage hand.
That's what I'm asking for.
I don't.
But
The same thought I did.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much a ruby weighs, but I think I'll say it weighs less than 5 pounds. Sure.
Yeah.
okay. I'm a bit concerned about the glass plating at this point in time, but I am keeping that in my back pocket. I'm going to go ahead and take a shot at this guy with my crossbow.
Sure, go for it.
Does a 16 hit?
A 16 is an exact hit. Absolutely.
Three points of piercing damage. Maybe.
A little less. A little less than 3, but nonetheless, you can see that you sight at the back of him, and you can see, again, it creates a little bit of drag as it passes through. Unfortunately, it passes through and clatters onto the ground rather than endangering Gideon in any way.
And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use a bonus action, and I'm going to use my bardic inspiration, and I'm going to look over it. I'm going to eye Gideon, and I'm going to say, "You can do it!"
The classic bardic inspiration, of course.
Yes.
All right, Gideon. So you get that D6,
And then, which one of these two pedestals is the actual ruby on? It's in the middle here.
Yeah, it's kind of in the center of those two. There's actually
Okay.
a laser. So it's like right around
Yeah.
here.
Okay. And I am at as far as I can tell, I'm at a door that goes down.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a stone railing that goes around the side, so you can.
Can I hop it off? Can I hop off of it?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. It is a. I mean, you're a gnome, and it is. Let's see here. I mean, it's close to like 10 feet down. It's maybe like 6 or 8 feet down. So it's a little bit of a. If you want to hop over the rail and fall, sure.
No, I think I'm good now. I think I'm just going to shop my inspiration
Sure.
and worry about. And then there's stairs over here where Azure is at.
Yeah. There's stairs to the north and south of this, so you could go around.
I am gonna go around and try and get to at least to where the stairs begin. I don't know that I can get down them from where I'm at because of the corner, but
Sure. Yeah, and you look over and see Azure. Azure, do you want to describe yourself at this moment? Since
Yeah, I'm kind of a dragonborn, so kind of tall and scaly, like a deep blue scales, kind of tinged with like a teal kind of edging to them. As you come closer, you kind of always have this faint smell of ozone, that leftover static odor whenever you're nearby.
excellent. And I can tell that you're on our side because you're not on his side. It's pretty obvious.
yeah, you did see her fling a firebolt at him, which isn't really the universal sign of friendship, but I mean,
seem trustworthy. Would you like to join our party?
yeah.
Certainly.
So I'm gonna say, "Hey, Bluey, let's do this."
And Azure, it's your go. You go after
All
Talia.
right. This thing is still engaging him, not paying really either of us any mind.
Correct, and
It's really, it's kind of, hasn't said anything, hasn't really done anything except for menace poor Gideon over there.
It definitely hit me with a sword.
I know it did. It's menacing you.
That's more than menacing. That's
yeah.
stabbing.
It's aggressive menacing.
criminal menacing.
Yeah, there we go. Gosh. Okay.
And by the way, Talion, you would have had advantage on that. So do you want to just roll again and see if you would have got a crit? Just for.
Sure.
And Azure,
On the
you
actual
also.
attack.
Yeah, you actually also have advantage. But
Oh, advantage
Yeah.
right now.
correct.
Yeah, the high ground on him.
Oh yeah.
So now
I
might
forgot
not be
about
a bad time to whip out a bigger spell.
Yeah, I might pull out
I did not crit. I
Yeah,
just
I'm
would
gonna
have
pull out Witch
increased it a little bit.
Bolt.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull out Witch Bolt, and I think I'm gonna try to use. I'm gonna try to use one of my pull from my font of magic here, and you make it to an empowered spell.
You use empowered after the fact.
Oh, after the fact. Okay.
Yeah.
I have not played a sorcerer.
It's like the only one that's like after the fact.
So strange. Okay, well, I guess it's nice you say if I hit or not. So
Yeah.
all right.
So
Yeah, I'm gonna try to nail it with the Witch Bolt.
Witch bolt?
Yeah. Let's see. Does a 21 hit?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right. Definitely going to use the empowered spells. I'm going to try to do 2d12 here to it and see what happens. 11 damage.
oh, +1 for your
Oh yeah.
12.
That's right. 12.
And how do you feel about collateral damage? Or let me ask this: how much control do you have? I mean, I know with Witch Bolt it lances out, so there's the burning of ozone and the crackle of a lightning bolt that just springs forth from your Lamanian focus, and it lances into him. But I'm just wondering, do you think it goes through the display case, or do you think it goes just over the display case?
You know, let's see. We'll have fun here. It goes through the display case.
Okay.
I'm a free spirit. No one tells me what to do. So
Yeah.
we'll
Because
go with
this
my
is
background here.
because this is arcane lightning, of course.
Yes.
It shatters the glass, and you can see that Bezelwick has kind of begun shouting incoherently. He seems to be yelling in Gnomish to his employees. Italian. He's basically saying, "Call the watch." Call the military. Call everyone. But when he hears the shattering of glass, he also looks back in this direction, even more in shock. And you can see that this employee of his is like dragging him at this point away from danger. So, all right, yeah. So that takes care of that. Did you want to use your bonus action for more tempestuous magic or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I think I'm going to move myself again here. I'm going to go. Gosh, I'm kind of like right next to the stairs, aren't I?
Yeah, those are the stairs.
Yeah, no, I think I do want to kind of stay there. So unless this hobgoblin decides to try to make its way towards me, I kind of like where I'm at. I've got the high ground, a good place I can run out if I need to. So I think I'm going to stay put.
All right, makes sense. All right, so the warrior goes next. The spectral warrior of this hobgoblin. He is going to first. He is heavily damaged at this point. You can see that like he has grown ever so fainter since you guys have begun this encounter. He is, to use the 4th edition parlance, bloodied. Just about bloodied. So he's going to take an attack on Gideon. So he just lances out with his long sword, or slashes out. He's going to hit. There's a 19 on the die, so it was almost worse. Take 8 points of slashing damage.
Oh, my hit points.
But you can see that he's then going to... you're still standing, I take it?
Mm.
All right. He is going to break away from you.
Oh.
You can, of course, take your attack of opportunity.
I will end gladly.
You don't have Sentinel, I don't think, right?
I do not. Not yet.
Yeah.
Only 12.
No, unfortunately.
Could I use my bardic inspiration on this?
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would need at least a 4. 50-50. Nope.
So
14.
So he saved his bonus action attack for this moment. So he's going to overextend himself now, so that way you didn't get advantage on him as he moved away. He's showing a bit of cunning, perhaps. But he comes after the sorcerer. He is snarling, and like he's looking right at you, Azure. So you imagine he is, yeah. But he is going to take an attack against you. A natural 1. All right. I switched dice there, so a natural 1. So he is even immaterially like scampering up the stairs. Somehow he manages to like trip or something. He stumbles ever so slightly, and he does completely overextend himself. So like you guys aren't in an ideal position with him since you want it to kind of stay at length, but you can see that you are in an advantageous position. After the warrior goes Gideon.
All right. We're going to take bonus action to burn my second wind there because, ow.
Yeah.
I get all of 5 back. The dice are not in my favor this evening.
Lots of 2s.
We're going to go ahead and move around over here, and for our action, we're going to take a menacing attack.
You crunch over some shattered glass, and as Beswick is being dragged down the stairs, you hear him cry out, "You're paying for that!"
Still at advantage, correct?
Correct. Yes.
16 or 16.
16 is a hit.
All right, that's the magic number. And this is with the javelin, so this, that'll do. Okay, 13 piercing damage, and this is considered a magic weapon.
All right.
And he has to make a wisdom save or be frightened of me. Not sure if undead like this can be frightened, but we're gonna find out.
13 because you did a maneuver.
Yep.
Okay, I was like, wow, that's a powerful javelin.
You're on a 6 and a 4 on 2d6, so.
Gotcha.
That one should have been a d8. Oh well.
He, unfortunately, the frightening effect does not seem to take.
Okay.
He does have a condition immunity to being frightened, it seems.
That's all right.
But you have garnered his attention once again. You can see that he glares up at the Dragonborn. He glares down at you. He's weighing his options, but Talion gets stacked first.
Okay.
The crowd is pretty much completely out of the building by now. Although, yeah.
Yeah, I am not the type of guy that likes to attack up close at all. So I'm going to try and create a little space here. And then once I've created a little space, I will take a shot at him. Even though clearly my little crossbow is not doing a lot of damage. Do I still have advantage?
Yeah, you do. And also, Talion, since you've stepped back and the crowd has thinned out on the southern end of the chamber, you can see a familiar face kind of crouching between the pillar of the stone railing on the far side of the room is a familiar red-headed gnome. So you see that Tarina is here, and she is scribbling down notes frantically as she steals peeks at what's going on here.
All right, so 23 to hit.
That is a solid hit, absolutely.
And I'm going to wink it at Tarina. I'm going to see her and give her a wink. And 6 damage.
She writes that down. This was, what did you use for this attack?
What I use for the attack?
Yeah, I missed
just a crossbow.
Oh, okay. Cool.
6 points. Yeah, 6 points piercing damage.
You can see that the creature kind of shudders for a moment, almost blinking out of existence. Its sword kind of dips and falls towards the ground, but it reasserts itself and picks its sword back up into a defensive posture. And you got advantage on that, so did you roll with advantage?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. All right, Azure. This creature is perhaps too close for comfort.
You
But-
don't even have to cast anything. Just
Yeah.
straight up channel Witch Bolt.
Oh, that's true. You have the link still going. Yeah, I forgot about
Yep.
that. So the whole time it was stalking towards you, it's just got like force lightning crackling into it. All right, absolute power.
Just straight up channel.
All right. Awesome. All right. Very big. Oh, he takes 1.
Two.
Oh yeah, 2. I keep forgetting about my little lovely oak. But yeah, takes 2 damage. And I'm going to use I'm actually going to use my tempestuous magic to float the heck out of there. So I'm gonna go towards back kind of where I was.
Here.
Yeah, and I'm gonna actually can I use my actual move action at this point as well?
Yeah. Is the tempestuous magic? Does it say that you don't provoke attacks of opportunity, or does
No
it...
attacks of opportunities.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
That's why I use it first. Now I'm gonna run, or not run, but move my full, or well, is that 30 feet down to the other
5,
end?
6. That'll get you here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll move my full. Nice distance from him, but I can still zap him.
And it's just interesting to think about how that works. So you continue the lightning, you quickly fly away from it, and then you move across the room, still maintaining this connection with the lightning. so you can see that it turns, like, following your progress, but it realizes that Gideon is still harrying it. All right. Gideon, this creature is going to go down swinging. You can see that it snarls and brings the longsword up overhead. Does a 16 hit your AC?
No.
It is going to take its bonus action, desperately lunging at you.
We're gonna riposte again.
All right, go for it.
I suppose I'm not at advantage on that, am I?
Yeah, you know what? I'll give it to you.
All right. All right. Well, that's gonna hit to start. 21 or 15. 21.
That's a hit.
All righty. Another good damage roll. Take 12 more.
All right. So it was swinging at you. It was going to miss anyway. I rolled before you said. So you can see that it's sweeping its sword up desperately, trying to get under your guard, trying to get under your shield, and you see that opportunity to just bring your warhammer down.
Oh, this is the javelin.
Oh, this is the javelin. True. Okay. Yeah. So how do you want to finish him off with your javelin?
Oh, I'm just figuring this is a standard spear thrust. Is you knock away the overhand slice and just move in under the arm.
And just like that,
this is elementary. This is training day stuff.
Yeah. Are you usually this bloodied after a training day? As the spectral form of the hobgoblin like discorporates rapidly, you can hear like its wispy sort of death gurgle, and as its essence drains away, it is drawn back towards the ruby in the center, like a trail of smoke, just like in reverse, just suctioned towards the so-called heart of the seawall, and it disappears. You can hear immediately after combat, taking in the situation, you can see that Tarina kind of stands up, looking over the scene, making even like a quick sketch perhaps in her notes. Her pen is moving so quickly. You can hear the clamoring of the crowd outside. In Talion, from your vantage point, you can hear like shouting voices in the archive. Not like as if more danger, but just like panicked voices down below as well.
I'll scan around. Where's Bezelwick? Where's the boss?
Since you were down there the whole time, yeah, you might not have seen. Are you asking that out loud, or
yeah?
Okay. Talion, do you want to chime in on that?
Especially if I don't see him.
I'm gonna kind of like walk toward him, and right now he's still below me on the steps, right? So I can actually touch his shoulder. I'm gonna touch his shoulder, and I'm gonna say, I knew you could do it. And I'm gonna cast Cure Wounds when I do that, and give him 4 points back.
Nice. So is that the bard you are? You just inspired by oratory?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
that's what I meant to be, and then I also tell him, that our fearless leader has run away to the archives, right? He went to the archives.
Yeah.
He ran away to the archives where he felt safer.
How many hit points was that?
4.
I'll take what I can get.
I question about the ruby. It's still there. This mist had emanated from it originally. Is it still glowing?
Even fainter now than when this began, but ever so faintly. And it's not like throbbing. Not that you saw that because of your passive perception, but the rest of you, sparing a glance in that direction, you could see that it looks to have calmed down, but it's still obviously magical in some regard.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do an Arcana roll on it and see if there's any kind of other information I could get? If it's something I'd be familiar with?
Yeah, so you guys see the Dragonborn. This might be a time to make introductions because you see her peering at the prize. Do you want to? I mean, you can see that these two kind of look up at you. Are you going to approach it, or are you just trying to look at it from where you are?
I'm just gonna look at it real quick and just kind of like make like a judgment. Like, is this something I'm familiar with? Have I seen this before? Ghostly hobgoblins coming out of glowing gems and causing havoc.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a little odd. Yeah, it's a Tuesday. I got 19 for Arcana with it.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, you two are seeing the Dragonborn kind of look discerningly at the stone from her vantage point. Azure, you don't need to detect magic to know that something glowing is magical. Taking a read of it, you would say that this is maybe a conjuration effect, possibly necromantic in nature. The creature seemed, possibly to be like an undead spirit or whatever. But other than that, I mean, like, it seems this is like a rough cut ruby that allegedly was just pulled out of a mine and put on display as like a show of the mineral wealth of this gnomish nation. It doesn't look like it was worked by like modern artificers or anything. It looks like this was a property imbued on it by, how would I say this? It doesn't look like, not that it wasn't professionally done, because it looks like it's a powerful little piece of magic, but it just looks like it was done not by the conventional standards of like your artificers and mage rights of the day. It may be, I don't know, there might be an element of it that makes you think of like elemental binding, but you don't think that spirit was elemental in nature. So it's interesting, to say the least.
Do I feel like this can happen again?
Indeterminate. I mean, it still seems like it is magical, but it seems about as dormant as you've seen in the past, minutes of study. But yeah.
I walk over to it, kind of make these kind of glances. I'm like, interesting.
Okay. The lightning was appreciated, but this isn't going anywhere.
Oh no, I know. I'm just curious. Are you doing any better? Thanks for the assist, by the way.
Who assisted who?
I was brought into some extra muscle, as it were, to kind of keep an eye on things here.
I'll look to Talion as like, is this something Codger would do?
Oh, totally.
Talion's going to kind of chuckle a little bit and say, kind of nod like the assent because I know the question that he's asking without asking, and then I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Talion. What's your name?
Azure.
Gideon,
Thank you as well.
stow the javelin and shield for the time being.
All right. In this intervening moment, while you guys are kind of making introductions, you look back up and realize that Tarina has kind of slipped out. She seems to have enough of a story for the moment. You're not sure if she caught your name or not, Azure, although you don't really know who she is, perhaps. The watch is much quicker to respond this time. But yeah, you could see that in the next few moments, Bezelwick and a few of the museum docents, one of them kind of cautiously pokes their head up from the stairwell and then whispers down to the rest that everything's fine, and they kind of start filing up. Bezelwick is the last, and he is just like mopping sweat off of his brow at this point. He's stammers out like, thanks, thank you all, thank you. What is going on here? What was that? What's going on? What do you know?
That was a hobgoblin specter.
Yeah, it seems to be somehow tied to this gem. Do you know anything about that?
I know that this thing will be out of my hands not soon enough. But yeah, you can actually see that filtering in at this moment is a couple of the city watch. It looks like they're cutting through the crowd outside. They might have only been like a block or so away when this all broke out. Bezelwick looks to you, Azure, to your question. He would say, private donor, short-term exhibition. It is gone from our collection tomorrow. Perhaps tonight if I can get a hold of the correct party.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, if you wanted notoriety for your museum, I'm sure you've gotten it tonight.
If people don't feel safe enough to come back, it's not going to keep my coffers full for long.
Curiosity is quite the draw.
Are you available for long-term employment? You're quite handy.
Listen, Gideon, my good friend here, is quite handy. But if you're going to discuss any kind of long-term employment, you really should talk to myself.
All right. So yeah, he slips into Gnomish, and the two of you kind of chitter back and forth. He starts to discuss things like daily rates, standard contract for his employees. And in the few moments that are passing there, Gideon, you kind of keep watch. You can see that the watch is establishing the perimeter here. So like a couple of them have taken up spaces near the door. They're giving you guys a wide berth because they can tell by the smell of ozone and the blood on you and everything that you guys are the adventuring types. But you can see that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say they're also, you can hear them just kind of dispersing the crowd outside, and just securing the area. What were you gonna say?
If I can identify like a watch captain or someone giving orders, I'll debrief. I'll give a full report.
Okay, yeah, you approach one of the gnomes who has like a platinum band on his pauldron or whatever. But as you approach, he just kind of like holds up a hand and he says, "Don't even bother. This is above my pay grade. We're waiting for a friend of yours, I think." And Codger, you can hear the Codger's cane kind of tapping on the stone floor as he saunters into the room. He makes a beeline, not even really acknowledging your all existence. I mean, you can see that he surveys the room quickly and notes everyone in it. But he heads down the stairs to the exhibit, and uncontested, like unless you guys have anything to interject, you can see that he pulls out a silver set of tongs, or like a silver set of tongs, and picks up the ruby with those tongs and holds up like a pouch. And as he lowers it into the pouch, Gideon and Talion, Azure, you're watching this closely and maybe out of interest, but like this detail maybe escapes you because of your perception. Talion and Gideon, you see that as the ruby kind of sags into the pouch, like it doesn't give at all. So it doesn't bulge and it doesn't seem to weight his hand in that moment. You can see that he quickly cinches that shut and then sighs heavily and just calls out loudly, "Give us the room." And at that, you could see that the watch captain like looks at you, Gideon, and gives you a nod, like "Good luck with this." And he begins kind of, he gestures for his team to head out. You could see that Bezelwick, Codger just fixes Bezelwick with a stare, and Bezelwick just kind of slinks away down the stairs with a couple of his employees, and you can hear like a door loudly shut down below. But yeah, he definitely looks at you all, and you all have interpreted correctly that he did not mean for you to leave.
It's good.
Okay. So he just kind of like still standing down by the shattered display case. He kind of grinds a little bit of the glass on the floor under his boot and just kind of gestures for you all to come in close. Huddle up.
Italian's going to kind of drag his feet walking down there, and you can hear him muttering under his breath something to the effect of, "If I'd have had just 10 more minutes, I could have gotten 10 more gold coin out of that guy."
Yeah, you're about to seal the deal for the season. You're about to live in luxury. I hate to keep doing this to you, Azure, but everybody but you notices one thing. The Gideon and Talion, you notice perhaps first because he's not as discreet about it. Codger looks to you all, looks around the room to make sure everything's clear. He looks up to the skylight, and you can see his eyes like narrow ever so slightly. And your guys' passive perception is high enough as well. And Talion, you perhaps even know what to look for in this scenario. You guys trace his eye line, and you see that the glass dome of like the window above you, you can see just a bit of a cloak caught on the edge of it, as if somebody is standing up there and leaning away from the window, but like not being as stealthy as they thought. Codger just kind of like looks down to you all and shaking his head. He says, "If she thinks I'm going to let the Chronicle print this." Anyway, it just kind of dismisses it. Rest assured, he says, that someone in threat analysis has lost their job over this. There's an empty desk. Got any recommendations, Talion?
Let me get back to you on that.
Well, this thing has become a right mess, and the eyes and ears of Korenberg confirm that Verdun Top, the esteemed gentleman that put all of this on display, came in by lightning rail about a month ago and hired some sellswords for an expedition to the ruins of Pallor Draw. Pallor Draw. I know, Gideon, you're trained in history and you've been in this region. Talion, you are from here. Azure, are you trained in history?
I'm not, just Arcana.
Okay. I mean, so what's your intelligence score?
12.
Okay, so you're well wetted enough to know that Pallor Draw is definitely a Dakani phrase, or it's definitely a goblinoid phrase, and you think it has something to do with the Dakani Empire. Gideon or Talion, if you want to roll for history.
6.
Okay.
19.
You're like you kind of like look at Gideon. You look and you're like, what are these plaques? Maybe said something about that, and you're like looking about. With a 19 Talion, I'll tell you, it's to the east of here. It's a few days' journey, maybe less than a week. And it is much as he said. It's ruins. It was a goblinoid city dating back to the Dakani Empire. It's been the source of a lot of archaeological finds. On the back wall of this gallery, there are like pottery pieces and like spear tips and things that have been excavated from there. So it's kind of a site of academic interest, not too far from here. But to resume what he was saying, he hired some sellswords for an expedition to the ruins of Pallor Drawl. It seems they rode out and came back more or less intact. And then our granite friend bought himself a lot of cheap gems and semi-precious stones to conceal the origins of this. And he kind of pats. At this point, he's kind of attached it to his belt. Azure, when he says granite friend, verdant top, like, I think you're piecing together this picture here.
Yeah.
Although granite friend does seem odd. Although you're so with your knowledge of the arcane, you're like, this guy was petrified.
What the?
Not clear if he knew what he had, but 2 copper magerite told him that the magical ore had dwindled down to a fading ember, and he took it upon himself to play sage and study up on the Dakani to see if he could suss it all out himself. And that's where he ended up at the library, and I think we all know how that turned out for him. Whatever this rock is, we've stopped 3 other goblinoid troops in the city. That's why I asked this one, and he kind of nods at Azure, not Jester. Yeah, critical roll. He nods at Azure, and he says, that's why I asked this one to lend you a hand in this. And he like looks around and he's like, where's your strange friend anyway?
Repairs.
Maybe they could do something to fix that chipper attitude of his. But he says, nevertheless, whatever this rock is, we've stopped 3 other goblinoid troops in the city at the border who were skulking about. And they all either fought to the death or poisoned themselves to prevent capture. I don't know if you lot realized it, but the ones that you fought, they kept a little piece of, like, ceramic in their mouth. They crunch down on it. Sickest thing I've ever seen, honestly. So whatever this is, seems to be important to the Gobos. And whether Verdun knew what it was or not, someone out there is stirring up this pot of dung stew for us. Theories? You guys got anything?
What's the cost of letting them have it back if they want it this badly?
Without knowing what it is and what it's capable of, I'm certainly not going to turn it over to Kek Valar. The Blade Bearers, they are a tad bit aggressive. Maybe it belongs in the hands of... Kek Sharat is the Blade Bearers. Maybe it belongs in the hands of Kek Valar, those word bearer types, but I don't exactly have an address that I can mail it to. That being said, I do need it out of my city. What else? You guys got anything else on this? You seem like a smart bunch, especially without that Warforged tagging along with you.
I'm not familiar with many types of magic, though I do know my way around several of the undead. And it's not uncommon for their spirits to be tied to locus objects.
I was looking at this a little more closely, and that seems to be what's happening. It seems to be some sort of conjuration magic has bound whatever this is to it. I'm not sure if it's necromantic in nature or what, but something is tied to this gem that makes it a dangerous thing. So it must be calling out to the hobgoblins around us as well.
or it contains a spirit that they want back.
Mm.
A great warlord or some other figure.
All interesting theories. Yeah. I mean, I don't assume that Bezelwick's employees were distributing handbills out in Dargoon. I'm not sure where they all would have heard about this. Maybe it is calling to him. Well, maybe this will help keep it safe. And he, gestures again to the belt pouch. Little time in an extra dimensional pocket never hurt anything, hopefully. But if I was the wagering type, I'd say that Verdon was going to use the museum for a sort of provenance laundering scheme. He's going to mix this gem in with the rest of the ones that he acquired here. And he just kind of gestures semi-precious stones, hunks of amber. And then he's going to tell customs on his way out of Zilargo that it was all just museum pieces. I'm not saying it's illegal for a man to find a magic item in the dirt and claim it for himself, but I don't know what he was up to.
It's the magic item you can have.
Well,
Trouble.
once I handle this job, I'm retiring. And so if you all can help me expedite this to its most efficient end, whatever's safest for the Triumvirate and the rest of Zilargo, of course, I would be very grateful. And I could be a good friend to have, even if I am retired.
I have to say it. I point over at one of the other semi-precious stones. Perhaps you're too old for this schist.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh my god. Is that
Hey, geology jokes.
He groans. You guys are staying at the Sleepy Scholar. You got a couple more nights on Bezelwick's tab. I'll let him know. I'm going to come to you in the next day or two. Sort out whatever affairs you need to sort out. And when I have my marching orders, I'll give you yours. Sound good?
Fair enough.
He nods and he says, all right, well, I know where to find you. The Sleepy Scholar.
He's hanging on to the gem for the time being, correct?
Yeah, he censors it back to his belt.
Yeah.
He tells you it's going to be looked at by top gnomes. Top gnomes. He kind of looks at you all kind of expectantly, wondering if there's any objections or anything else he needs to know before. All right.
Not offhand.
He gives you all a nod. He says, you're free to go. And he looks up towards the dome skylight and he goes, "This is all off the record." But he saunters on over to head down to the archives, you imagine, to break the news to Bezelwick. Perfect. All right. Well, you guys are free to pursue the rest of the evening. You would actually...
go ahead.
Oh. No, I was going to say, the rest of the evening is going to pass uneventfully, you feel. You're in a relatively safe city when it's not being haunted by hobgoblins or infiltrated by hobgoblins. But what were you going to say, Gideon?
I was going to say, I don't suppose that coffee shop is open still, is it?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
Yeah, you get the sense that the husband and wife team that run that are retirees, so they probably close up at supper time.
Yeah, probably by lunch they're done.
Yeah. As you guys are exiting, you can see that the exhausted day shift is coming back. They got waved off during the exhibit time, but they've gotten the alarm bell from Bezelwick, so you can see that maybe actually there's probably two fresh faces in this group. Maybe the captain of this watch, the acting captain guy, impressed on Bezelwick that you can't put people through the ringer like this. So you can see that they're there. They're giving you guys kind of like the nod of respect, and the captain is just like looks to Gideon, and he gives you a deep nod, and he goes, "Yeah, you can always tell a military man looking out for others that stand and serve."
You can't be expected to march on an empty stomach.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a rough night, but we're getting double pay for this, so.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, see what you can do. All right. So the rest of the evening passes uneventfully. You guys, you again, are only about like a 20, 30-minute walk away from the inn where you've been staying.
If there's any sort of like little food cart or something, I'll make sure to send them up towards the museum, give them a gold coin or two, just say, head up there, give them whatever they want. This will cover it.
All right, sure. Yeah.
They're running triple shifts because we keep getting attacked. I mean,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna take care of my guys.
Yeah, tacos seem like something that is extant in the Gnomish cuisine. I don't know.
Tacos.
Yeah.
Funny, the Eberron game that I'm running monthly, they just visited a burrito stand.
Yes, we did.
Nice.
Ral burritos.
Yep.
Yeah. For easily for 2 gold, you can point that vendor in the right way and secure half dozen. I don't know what they would call them. A half dozen tacos for the shift on there. That being said, you guys are able to complete a long rest. Azure, you get the implication from Codger was such that you also now have a room. They've actually been hot bunking with the day shift, so like there's just generally like 2 rooms under their name, I would say.
Gotcha.
Now there is at least. So you're put up for a night at the Sleepy Scholar on Bezelwick's tab. That
Right.
the proprietor doesn't seem to care. He just scribbles down some figures. The rest of the evening would pass uneventfully. You would actually have a day of downtime, it seems. I would say that a messenger arrives the following morning on Nim the 5th with a sack of gold coins that he is directed to give to Talion. Talion. So yeah, you come down into the common room and you can see that there is a House Orion courier, inner city courier. So point to point within the city of Korenberg. He asks you to sign a document that kind of shows proof of delivery. And you can see that on the document, it kind of spells out the contents. 120 gold pieces. It says in the memo line, basically like hazard pay from your former employer and travel expenses for what's to come. And it's just signed with a scribble, a C that just turns into an absolute scribble. But yeah.
And having seen how much Gideon likes to spend our money, I'm not going to tell him that we have to pay.
Oh no! Now begins the inter-party conflict.
I am a mercenary, a former mercenary. I'm gonna wonder where my money is.
Take it up with Bezelwick.
I'm going to tell him that it's been paid, but I'm gonna kind of just not tell him the full amount because I don't want it to just disappear. But I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to make sure he doesn't
Sure.
spend it all on
Going to
cost.
set up a 401k for him. He's going to get taken care of.
Exactly.
All right, perfect then. All right, well, you guys have, like I said, the rest of this day passes fairly uneventfully unless there's anything specifically you'd like to accomplish.
I'm probably up with the sun like usual because military, I'm up at 6 o'clock. Calisthenics, coffee and pastry, and I'm gonna go shopping for a good pair of boots.
Easy enough to find a good pair of boots. I think a good pair of boots might cost I don't know, just like silver pieces, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like,
Negligible. Yeah, it's all right.
yeah. So you could do that definitely. Talion, are you even going to let on that travel might be forthcoming, or you want to
Yes.
tip your hand?
Well, I'm going to imply it.
Okay.
I'm going to, but I'm not going to spend too much time with the group actually, because I would like to track down Tander because he was there last night and I really kind of want to get his read on everything.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I guess by the time that you left out, the guard had really pressed everyone out of the area. So when you meet Tander, he was like, "Oh, I was worried about you, but the watch, they don't get used often. They could be a little heavy-handed. They were shoving us all out of there. What happened?
Well,
what was that?
So you didn't. What did you see before you didn't see anything else?
Well, I was listening to Bezelwick kind of bloviate about geography. He was talking a lot about the Seawall Mountains and the treasures within, the importance of our good relationship with House Thrash and the prospectors. And then all of a sudden, poof, out of nowhere, there was some sort of green being. I thought it was maybe part of his presentation until everybody started panicking and I heard 2 shrill screams and just kind of got swept up with the crowd. Did you stay in there?
Well, yeah, it's my job, Tander. I mean, we don't all get to enjoy a cush, salary at the library. But actually, speaking of the library, this is why I really wanted to talk to you. You're familiar, of course, with the ruins of Paladral. I was wondering if you could do me a favor while you're at work today. I'm sure you have a little bit of downtime. I would really like you to maybe do a little bit of research for me and see if you can make any connections between rubies, the undead, and Paladral, and goblinoids. And yes, I realize those are really big areas.
Yeah.
But you're my brother, so I've got faith in you.
Paladral and goblinoids, that's fish in a pond. Yeah, that connection's obvious, but
it's the other
rubies?
2 that are really more interesting.
I can take a look into it. The catalog stone regarding Dakani history in this area is still evidence in a crime, but I can ask around the campus.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just see if you can touch base with any of your fellow librarians. I'm sure that there's some knowledge out there that's maybe not locked out at this point. But if you come up with something, holler at me. I'll probably be gone in 24, 48 hours. So you know where I'm staying and you know how to get a hold of me. And I love you, brother. I'm glad that you're safe.
He looks at you and he sees that you're unscathed. You didn't get touched in the battle. And he's like, cushy library job. And he holds up his hands and you can see they're deeply ink stained and he's got scabbed over paper cuts. And he's like, I think I work a little bit harder than you and it's an honest day. But yeah, I love you too, brother. So yeah, he'll take his leave. He'll come back to you as quickly as he can with anything he can find. Okay, cool. Anything else? Anybody else have anything to accomplish in Korenberg at the moment? No? Okay. So let's jump forward a bit then. It's Nim the 5th. You guys are at the Lightning Rail station. You're actually at this moment kind of stepping aboard a lightning rail. This is the Spire Express. It is a 3-day run to the city of Sharn and making stops along the way. You guys are filtering onto the train car at the request of Codger. And Codger has given you several things to prepare you for this trip. Unbeknownst to the rest of the party, including a ghost and Azure and Gideon, I guess, he's given you a bit of a traveling fund. He secured your tickets, so there's no need to worry about paying the fare or anything like that. He's given you a book to keep Ghost occupied, and he's given you the ruby to watch over. And he says to Talion and Gideon, outside of Ghost's earshot, he says, if I were you, that friend of yours doesn't sleep. You give him this book, you sit him down on top of this ruby, you keep him in the room until you get to Sharn. No, strike that. Until you get to Rowan. You've been given the heart, the travel expenses. He also gives you a business card. It's a simple black business card with silver calligraphy on it. It's 5 arcane symbols. You would all be fairly acquainted with this. This is an address for a Civis Echoer station. Usually the symbols are keyed to a specific speaking stone. How Civis runs these, multiple in the big cities, one at pretty much every lightning rail station. It's effectively like the telegraph in Eberron. This doesn't have a name associated with it, but Codger told you if you need to reach him, you reach him here. Once the job is done, you reach him here. And he would describe the job to you as in Rote, which is actually the capital city of Breland. Someone is going to get aboard. This person is a professional. I can't really describe them. They will know you. They will begin the conversation with you, and they will tell you what to do from there. Keeping this a little close to the chest. I've read you guys in on the investigation so far. Trust me that you're not in any danger. This person will make themselves known. They will certainly tell you that Codger is a friend of theirs, and they will tell you what to expect when you reach Sharn. Rote is the second to last stop on the Spire Express. So by the time they get on, you're only about 7 hours outside of Sharn. You get into Sharn, you do what they told you. Bingo, bango, bongo is basically the gnomish expression. So you guys are in the process of boarding the Spire Express, kind of thinking back to how Codger described the job to you. You know that the Spire Express makes stops in Zollenberg, Sterngate, Star Alaska, and Rote before eventually reaching Sharn. And the trip does take 3 days. 3 days on the rail, just, with those occasional stops. Codger was pretty scant with the details in this situation. Is there anything specifically you wanted to ask him? And then Talion, I can give you what Tander gave you the night before you left. Is there I'm saying retroactively, is there anything that you would have asked Codger in this moment, knowing that he might not give you what you want?
Nothing offhand, unfortunately.
No, I'm just going to kind of note it, put it in my back pocket. Maybe one of these days I can figure out how to use the fact that he's not being completely forthright with us. But
sure.
No.
All right. Talion, Tander stopped by the Sleepy Scholar the night before. He had his day. He ate dinner with the family. He's swinging by, especially since you said you might be out of town. And he tells you that the ruins of Pallor Drawl have been considered pretty fished out. Archaeological digs have been going on there for, since the war ended, definitely. And even before then, the Dakani Empire fell a long time ago, and people have picked through the dirt there and come up with their little baubles and trinkets, but no major finds have been documented there for some time. As far as undead and rubies and such, he reiterates a bit of what you guys found in Verdon's study materials, which is basically that the Dakani tradition was more so practical artifice. Like, they concerned themselves with the manufacture of magical armor and weapons. They didn't necessarily make rubies that summoned undead creatures, at least not en masse. But he would also kind of admit to you that, like, Kekvolar, the word bearers, they have a much better sense of the history than you can find even in the library at Cornenberg. He says, there might be specialists at Moorgrave that study these kind of things, but specifically not a lot is written down because a lot of the Dakani tradition is oral, and a lot of it is also they have. He pulls some paper out of his pocket and uncrumples it. He probably carries a field notes type thing and a little leather portfolio. But he flips through and you could see he says dirge singers. They had a proud tradition of keeping their history in song. And because they didn't really write these songs down, or at least not in a way that made it this far, we don't know everything about them. But if you think that this ruby and that thing, that attack last night, has anything to do with the Empire, well, that's an interesting story. You better tell me about it the next time you're in town.
And I promise to do that, and thank him for everything that he's done, and ask him to give my regards to everybody in the family.
Sure. All right. Knowing that you guys were going to get on a train for 3 days, if there's anything that you would have liked to have done in advance, okay.
Bottle of wine, couple books.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you guys board the Lightning Rail. You guys have been given 2 cabins in the A passenger car, which is the frontmost. Basically, the Spire Express, you're able to assess it when you're on the platform, is 10 cars, which is pretty standard for Lightning Rail. It has 2 helm cars at either side. You know that it's actually easier for them to move the bound air elemental from one end to the other than it is for them to turn the train about in the yard. So it basically has 2 heads at either end. There are 2 passenger cars with 1 seating car in between them. Beyond passenger car B is a dining car. And then there is a first class car with a couple of private cabins. And then the remainder of that all falls to the crew. So since you guys are in passenger cart A, you're actually just kind of 1 car behind the crew cart at this end. So you see kind of frequent traffic of individuals moving through the hallway outside your room as things are kind of getting underway. I think, a ghost takes the book that Codger provided him. We'll determine what exactly the subject is later, but Codger picked it out specifically to tailor to his interests. Maybe there's coloring pages in it. I don't know. But yeah, he sits like a chicken on an egg. He just sits on the ruby in the cabin reading the book. Only needing to trance, of course, take his century's rest. So you think that should keep that pretty secure as long as he doesn't get it out and play around with it. But he's promised you, Gideon, that he's not going to do that. And yeah, Codger does seem to say, I think it's important you keep that thing on another plane of existence. And that bag is the safest place for it until you reach Rote, until you meet up with this with the contact there. Yeah. So that is the run of the train. You guys hear the telltale thrum. You guys, what do you think your experience is with the lightning rail? I mean, it's not like it's such an extravagance that it's like completely uncommon. But if you haven't really crossed Corvair, you might not have had a need to take it very far. Does anybody have an idea of what their character's experience is?
Very many of these.
Yeah, yeah, you've come a long way from home. Azure, do you have a professional?
Read, always have something to drink.
Do you have a professional interest as the lightning rail, and you're kind of a lightning aficionado?
I'm kind of all over the place around Corvair, so I'm pretty familiar with these. And yeah, I've kind of looked into them, researched them because it's my personal interests and how they function. And
Yeah.
how do the air elementals that are bound to this? How are they? Is this like torture? Is this?
Oh man, the air elemental rights activists are all over this. So, I mean, in your research, you would know that basically, like, what makes the lightning rail possible is the conductor stones that are embedded underneath the cars and in the actual like rail line that establishes the path it travels, and these conductor stones crackle with lightning that passes between them, giving it like the lift, basically. Magnets, how do they work? But the bound air elementals, I don't think anybody has intuited like their level of intelligence. Like I think an elemental's experience of the world is so foreign to like humanoids that like it's impossible to say. There might be some individuals who have debates about this, maybe after a few drinks or whatever. But you know that House Orion is pretty well respected in this regard, and this is a well established practice.
Eat up for elementals.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So you would know that this vessel is under the command of one of the dragon marked heirs of the house. I believe you have to bear the dragon mark of passage in order to conduct one of these. So you might, every time somebody kind of walks by your room, you might like look towards the window to see if it's like if you could see a dragon marked person. You don't yet, but as you guys are kind of settling into your room, a ghost plants himself and begins to read his book, keeping things safe here. Everything seems to be going according to plan. There is, I guess these trains, they still have like a siren of sorts, not a steam whistle because they're not steam trains, I guess. But there is like a warning bell that rings to signal, all aboard who coming aboard. But you all are able to depart. In general, where do you think you're going to spend the majority of your time? It seems like a ghost has a pretty good handle on things. You can see that most guests that don't have more private inclinations or whatever tend to congregate towards the seating car, of course. The train is departing just around like 11 a.m. this morning, so the dining car will probably fill up at lunch and things like that. But in general, is there anywhere you guys see yourselves posting up for the first few hours of this trek?
I can think myself like towards the back of the seating car, trying to, generally speaking, reading away. But, especially after like lunch or after a meal, just, sitting in the dining car booth, just reading away, refill the coffee, refill the wine, just enjoying the luxury of not being on a march right now or not being on a field.
All right.
At meal times, I'm going to live it up as much as I can at the dining car. um, spend for like the higher
Yeah.
cost items there. Not like top tier, but give myself something good. And I'll probably spend most of the time in our personal sleeper cars or what have you, because I don't know how many dragonborn are on this train. Am I kind of like a giant sore thumb sticking out?
Yeah, you're a bit of a rarity.
Yeah.
There aren't any others on this train specifically.
Okay.
Talion?
Talion's going to probably spend the majority of the entire trip trying to figure out what the different social strata is that he can see and interact with on this train. Being a junior agent with House Civis and having done a little bit of diplomatic stuff, he's really just trying to make himself useful to individuals that may be willing to depart with a little bit of gold for his services.
Sure, yeah. So, Talion, you get a read on some of the individuals in the seating car. Reading people as you do. You note a few peculiar characters that kind of stand out to you. Maybe one of the ones that garners your interest most is like a very elderly, like she's got tanned, weathered skin, a red sash over like really like dusty like leathers, like a patchwork of like leather armor and traveler's clothes basically. And she is seated in one of the sitting booths by herself with a small, like long-necked lizard. Maybe, like larger than a cat. Definitely like longer than a cat because of its elongated neck. But the creature seems maybe like, you've never perhaps seen one of these before, but it looks just as old as she is. It kind of like drapes its head like onto the seated like the cushion of the seat near her, and it kind of like crackles out like a little chirp, like a mix between like a bird sound and the chittering as you walk by and then find your booth or whatever. There was also a couple of other individuals of interest. A gnome in like a really obnoxious looking purple and green suit. A one-armed man sharing a seating booth with a pretty traditional looking warforged, definitely nothing like a ghost. And in the back of the car, kind of watching you take your pace down the aisle and find your booth, there's a dwarf. And this dwarf is one ugly customer. You can see that he is also pretty aged, up in his dwarven years. I don't know if you can peg their ages that easily, but the one thing that kind of stands out the most about him is he looks like you can see the faint blue tracings of a dragon mark on his face, but over top of that is the scarification of like an acid splash. So much so that like it's on the right side of his face, that like his right eye has like cataract, like it's a milky eye, and just a giant scar across his face, like from an industrial accident perhaps, but it looks like he once bore a dragon mark. So you peg these individuals, the dwarf, the gnome kind of gives you a nod. The dwarf and the halfling woman keep to themselves, and the man and the warforged are kind of having a hushed conversation. You probably take your time to kind of like study them and see what you can glean about them. Let's just say that after lunch, you guys are all kind of in the sitting car, and Talion, maybe you're queuing your friends in on like, there's this dwarf. He's got this face. Or maybe you keep that to yourself. I don't know. But just several hours into the trip, you guys are in the seating car, maybe briefly just after lunch, touching base. and the gnome in the Klebdetcher suit. It's like this purple and green, hideous, like out of season, maybe even like obvious like patchwork on the sleeves and stuff from having been repaired. He stands up and is from his booth in the sitting car, and actually like stands up on the divider between them to kind of get some height, and he calls out, "Ladies, gentlemen, and Warforged, we are taking over this train." And he pauses for a moment, and like I think like as he pauses, you could see like a smirk kind of begins to creep over his face, and you could see like one of the stewards kind of like passing by with a drink cart like looks back at him, and he immediately rushes to conclude his sentence: "To host the Unicorn Run tournament." And you can see that there's about 4 individuals scattered throughout the train. The dwarf, still seated in the back, like laughs at the absurdity of the situation. The Warforged and the man that is sitting with him kind of let out a cheer. And at this point, there's also a shifter that had just kind of come in and leaned in the doorway. You could see that at least 4 of these individuals are clapping. The gnome, the Warforged, the man that's with the Warforged, and the shifter. The steward sighs immediately in relief, kind of like putting his hand on his chest, and he's like, he shakes his head and says to the gnome, like, "If you ever want to ride these rails again, you don't terrify House Orion employees like this." And the gnome just like gives just like, "Ah, you." He kind of holds up his hands, still kind of appreciating that he's like holding court here for the moment. He sees that he probably has your guys' attention, and he says, "The tournament begins this evening in the dining car, and the 3 ship leaders, by the time we reach Star Alaska, get a seat at the table with the reigning champion, the champion of the Unicorn's Run." And he seems to give this like a lot more. He seems excited about this in a way that like you guys, I don't think any of you have heard of the Unicorn's Run.
Is it a dice game by chance?
Are you asking the gnome, or are you just
asking you?
It seems like it's the name of the tournament. It doesn't seem like it's the name of the game. So you don't know exactly which game they're playing.
Okay.
But yeah, he referenced chips. He referenced seats at a table. Your inclination might be a card game, but it could be a dice game. But nonetheless, he kind of looks to the man, the Warforged. He gives a nod. He like waves to the shifter. He puts his finger on his nose and points at the door for whatever, who's still just kind of like laughing at the absurdity of the situation. And he looks to the lot of you, kind of seated together, keeping your own company, and he would say, 6 seats are taken, 2 seats are available. We like to leave it to the luck of the draw. And then he kind of pulls from a belt pouch a deck of cards and like bridges them in like midair, kind of showing like a bit of his alacrity or whatever. And he says, 3 dragon ante, pick 'em, of course, at the start. And it is a 20 gold buy-in with 5 gold rake. And I said, we begin this evening. You could see he kind of steps down from that, having kind of made his announcement, and you could see the man who's speaking with the Warforged gets up. He has a coin pouch in his hand, and he starts to saunter over to the gnome's booth. Yeah. So, Talion, with your read on this, you think that some of these people were expecting this. You think that there are some gamblers that perhaps received an invite, and you think that they leave a couple of seats at the table to attract suckers. Time to pluck a pigeon. But 3 dragon ante is, I think it's a card game that's actually technically a Forgotten Realms card game, but there's Planeswalkers. Here it is. So you guys are welcome to consider that. It's 25 gold, obviously. 20 golden chips and 5 gold rake. It means that the gnome is going to pocket 5 gold for having organized this event. But yeah, you could see a couple of others, like the steward comes back with another individual who kind of, after the man has a conversation with the gnome and retreats back to his Warforged friend, you can see a chief steward kind of leans in and has some, you could hear sharp whispers, like, like definitely coming down on him for yelling bomb on a plane, you know, kind of thing. But yeah. You're welcome to approach him as long as you, if you want to buy in by the evening time, that's all well and good.
I'm actually trained in dice games as a tool, but I'm bad enough at those to know I don't. No, not losing money that way.
I don't know. I'm a fairly greedy person by nature. I feel like gambling would be up my alley.
Yeah, it's possible. Well, yeah, after the chief steward kind of has his way with this gnome, you can see the gnome does linger there for a bit. Jules, just out of curiosity, that is to say, Azure, just out of curiosity, would you be... We could talk about this a little bit more offline, but if you wanted to join us next session in 2 weeks, you can certainly pick that up if you'd like. That being said, I think we're going to wrap up here shortly. So, yeah, if you want to buy in, though, definitely. If you have 25 gold to throw down, I don't know. You should have. I think I gave everybody like 100 gold to start, so you should have plenty. Okay, so you're gonna buy onto the table.
I think so.
Okay, cool. All right.
Talion's going to magically hand to Azure 20 gold.
Thank you.
25 gold.
You're a staker.
Yes, I'm a staker. and
like Casino Royale now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to...
Someone starts weeping blood, just, and we'll take care of that.
I'm going to suggest to her that I'm not interested in playing, but I'm interested in watching, and I would like you to play. So let's enter this, and we'll see what we can find out from the tables.
All right.
So, in making your introduction to this gnome and paying your entry fee, he would introduce himself as, let's see, I got my notes scattered everywhere here. He introduces himself as Quispar. He is a gnome in a purple and green Klebdetcher suit. And he is just an obnoxious individual. Like, he's definitely like, so one of the 2 spots is claimed. He like says that loud enough for anybody else in the car to hear. You can see that some other individuals have passed through here. You guys have actually seen one family, which kind of caught your eye, I would say. 2 children and a mother and father. And maybe the reason that they caught your eye the most, in addition to being like the only complete family on board, as near as you can tell, they look Siren. They look like, yeah, and I mean, that's
Like
enough of... Yeah, I mean, all Sirens are refugees, I guess, yeah. But yeah, that is to say, definitely they stand out to you because, there are areas in major metropolitan where like that become like Siren towns or Sire towns. But yeah, you can see that, so that is to say, Quispar takes your entry fee and says, the games begin this evening. Starlasker is a few stops away, so hopefully you have established quite a horde for yourself by then, and you will meet the champion of the Unicorn's Run. So he takes your money greedily. He stuffs it away in one of his belt pouches, and it seems like given how much money he's raked in from the participants, like he's either hiding coins like in every single pocket that he has and in his shoes and such, or he just has like a bag of money holding, like he's just dumping it all in. But he does give you chips in exchange. So he gives you 20. They're like little. They're just like simply wood carved and painted with like little unicorns on them, in the colors of House Orion. You know that House Orion's sign is the unicorn. All right, perfect. All of that being said, so you guys, touch base after lunch and kind of proceed about the way that you were saying. Talion, since you said you were the one specifically doing the people watching, I think you've spent most of your time in this sitting car. You see that the old halfling woman, especially after the gnome's announcement and that kind of excitement, departs and heads back to the passenger car towards the rear. But eventually, as things settle down and the gnome heads towards your guys' passenger car, he looks like he has a cabin in A. In a quiet moment, the dwarf leaves his booth and kind of comes over to join you. He actually, he walks down the aisle to your booth. You can hear like his heavy footfalls, and maybe just like a little bit of shuffling. But he stands at the entrance and looks into you, and he says, "May I have a seat?"
Sure.
Oh yeah. So you're with Talion at this point?
Oh, sorry. I thought it was also Oval.
No. I mean, if you think that you're in the sitting car, just kind of hanging out.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you are there. Okay. So yeah. Well, he takes your invitation. You could see that he kind of spares you a glance as if he's never seen a dragonborn before. I think, they are exceedingly rare. I think the 5e Eberron book only gave them like a paragraph, which basically says like they're in Kubara or something. I don't know.
They exist, but
yeah.
Other than that.
I had to squeeze them in. Signed Keith Baker.
Yeah.
But he looks to you, Talion, and he says, perhaps you're familiar with an organization that I belong to. And he kind of like throws up his hands, like shifting back like the sleeves of like a traveling cloak or whatever, and he holds up his fingers, showing 8 copper rings. And then once he sees that you have a moment to recognize that, he lowers his hands, and he says, "I think we have a mutual acquaintance, and I think perhaps something dreadful happened to that mutual acquaintance. I'd like to discuss how we might be of assistance to one another in that regard. Do I have your interest?"
Continue talking.
Well, to an extent. To an extent, I'll talk for free. But nonetheless. Verdun owed me a bit of coin. Personal loans. Things of that nature. With interest. And I have it on good authority that he will not be in any capacity to repay me in any point in the nearest future. So I come to you, not quite his next of kin, but close enough for my needs. I'll tell you a bit about myself to justify this price tag, of course, but at the conclusion of this free bit of talk, I will require 75 gold pieces to give you the rest. He goes on to say, he introduces himself as Wharfcar. My friends call me Worf. Yes, he is Worf the Dwarf. This was a name suggested by my IRL girlfriend. So, and he gestures to the acid-scarred side of his face, and he says, "Formerly de Kundarak." but Verdon and I are equals in an organization that seeks to assure the embetterment or the enrichment, perhaps, of its constituents. And as I said, he owed me a bit of coin from personal loans. I was suspicious of him. A mutual colleague back in Sharn told me that he had absconded off to Zilargo, so I followed his trail. And I found him in Korenberg a few weeks back. He told me a little bit of interesting news. And then I heard that he went off and got himself turned to stone. Is that true?
Well, let's just say he's not here with us today.
Well, let's just say that a lot of the employees of the library aren't paid well enough to keep their mouths shut. So gossip spreads like wildfire.
No doubt. But I'm trying to wrap my head around why it is that you think I would be interested in what you're telling me right now.
You might have missed me at the exhibit last night. Sometimes when I'm out and about on the town, I splurge for a little bit of cosmetics. But I had a suspicion that Verdon was behind that display, mostly because what he told me he was up to. And I went there expecting to find him. I found a lot of trouble, and I found a few individuals, yourself included, and you. I think he kind of like gestures at Asher and nods his head. Looked like you were interested in stopping the trouble for some reason.
And I'm going to give Azure kind of a guarded look to kind of imply that we're not going to guarantee anything that we can't deliver at this particular moment. Well, Worf, you do have my attention, but I'm not convinced that you have my interest yet. Now, I understand that this is going to be a few days on the rail here. Do you plan on continuing on with this?
I'm on all the way back to Sharn. I came out to talk to Verdon, and I don't think he's much for talking now.
Let's table this conversation and perhaps meet for dinner tomorrow evening, and we can converse more about what may or may not be of interest to us.
I was planning on eating in the privacy of my own cabin, but the card game will hold enough attention that we might be able to have a private conversation.
Well, let's say that at that dinner, whether or not we have a private conversation with regard to the information that you've hinted at, we'll be able to at least lay some ground rules about whether or not we do, in fact, have mutual interests.
He nods. He says, "That's a lot of words you just strung together there." But I get the gist of it. And he says, "I'll see you in the dining car this evening." He gets up. He gives a nod towards the Dragonborn.
Snort with the crackle of lightning out my nostrils.
He quickly moves off. I mean, Copper is pretty conductive. He doesn't want to get hit. All right. All right.
Okay.
So we might just want to put a pin in it there for the evening because we're getting close on time for the moment. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting looking characters on this train. It trundles on. I would say like the moment that it kind of lifted up, yeah, there might always be that moment of like uneasiness, or there's definitely a moment of strangeness when all of your hair, for those of you that have hair, Azure, no, I guess not, stands up on end from the static electricity that kind of overtakes the cart. But just a few hours later, as you guys kind of disperse from the sitting car and head off to occupy yourselves for a few hours before the card games and the conversations are had, you all hear like a chime, and there's like small like Canith manufactory like speaking horns kind of hung up throughout the train cars. You hear like bing bong, the classic like attention noise, and you hear a voice just kind of smoothly saying with a slight hint of urgency, ladies, gentlemen, Warforged, this is your captain. Acting captain speaking. It seems that my esteemed colleague has spotted a little bit of a concerning sight up ahead on the ridge, and even as this voice is kind of continuing to describe it, you guys kind of rush to like look out the window of like the passenger car that you're in, or just kind of like lean your head to like look forward. You could see streaming down from a ridge ahead of you. It's difficult to make out the exact details of these figures, but you see like dozens and dozens, maybe 3 dozen, maybe 4 dozen mounted individuals kind of teaming down. The rail line that you're taking is kind of against the Seawall Mountains, and you guys are in a bit of a mountain pass. It's just as if like a horde is descending from this ridge and riding down it towards your position. Even at this distance, as the train is moving towards them and they're moving towards the train, you can begin to hear like the roaring, yapping sound of some sort of band of raiders. And I think that's where we'll stop.
Oh boy. Alrighty.
Yeah. All right, perfect, cool. Yeah. Talion, by the way, I would say since you have your knowledge of the dragon marked houses, you think that this guy has been excoriated in the traditional sense of the word, as in like having the skin flayed from you for disobedience. Something they don't do a lot of anymore, but
Maybe not the most trustworthy individual.
yeah, you might have a good read on that. All right. Well, real quick, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Jules, like I said, you're welcome to join us in 2 weeks' time if you'd like.
Sure.
Perfect. All right. Anybody? Anything? I'll just do a quick outro for posterity's sake. My name is Ralph. I am found online at Cthulhu, Critthuulhu, and I am the Dungeon Master of these fine people, including Alan. Alan, where can everybody find you?
On Twitter at Big Al the Lawyer, playing Talion in this wonderful little game, and with an eye for trouble and an ear as well.
I'm Andy at Blackfall Press on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm Jules/Azure, and I don't really have handles, so.
All right. Well,